Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, just along for the ride.
And today, we announce a special expansion that we have going on here at Card Talk. Welcome aboard to the Card Talk train.
Yeah, thanks guys for having me. I'm excited to join the show, and the name of the show is called Card Talk, and frankly, I love talking about cards, so that's why I'm here.
Yeah, right? Grant, why don't you introduce today's card?
Okay, well, today we are talking about the hero from the Voice of Isengard expansion, Grima. He's a 9-cost, 2 willpower, 1 attack power, 2 defense point, 3 hit point, Rohan, with the traits Rohan and Isengard, with the action lower the cost of the next card you play from your hand this round by 1. That card gains Doomed 1, limit once per round.
Okay, well, Ted, you're the new guy, so guess what? You get thrown right under the bus right here at the beginning.
Oh man,
So-
Grima.
So what do you think about Grima?
You know, I was super excited when he got announced, and he's the hero that you can put him in the right deck, and he's very powerful. The ability to reduce the cost of cards. It's essentially an extra resource every single turn if you can handle the threat. But he's the one hero. He might be the most hated multiplayer hero, I think.
I agree.
Right?
with that.
Because if you see someone put down Grima, you're like, what a jerk. If Grima's somewhere on the table that isn't in front of you, you're like, come on, really?
Right. But I think he's also good. I think he's pretty good solo as well. I think that's when you're like, hey, let's play Grima and let's play him solo. I think that's where he should, because then you don't have to worry about being the bad guy at the table where you're raising everybody's threat around the table.
Yeah, solo I would say is his strong suit, and he gets sort of more weak with higher player counts, because then you're kind of spreading more threat around.
Grant, just real quick, what does his ability say there? Is it the next card that you play or the next card that's played?
You play.
Okay, so it only works on cards that you're playing in your hand. And so
Yeah.
I'm primarily a solo player anyway, so I never pay attention to you or that, all those triggers. I'm sitting here playing alone and I'm like, it doesn't even matter. So
Yeah.
So Grant, what do you think of Grima?
I like the idea behind him. It's very thematic. Obviously, Grima worked a lot with Saruman, so that introduces the threat, the doomed mechanic. If you've got a way to mitigate the threat, you could essentially pull out some very powerful cards very early on. If you have them in a mono lore deck, you could have out Firial.
Right.
For the cost of just raising your threat by 1 for a 3 willpower quester. It can be very potent, but you have to have a way of controlling your threat gains. One way of doing that would be with Aragorn.
I was going to say that this almost exactly leads right into the hero pairings. Is that I actually really like the hero pairing of Grima and Loragorn. Just so everybody knows, the lore version of Aragorn we call Loragorn, and so
commonly known in the community, as Loragorn.
Yeah, and I like that pairing not only because of Loragorn's threat reduction, but I also like the idea that Loragorn's kind of keeping his eye out on this crazy dude that's from Isengard. So Ted, who do you pair this guy with?
Lore Aragorn is number 1. He also got paired with and then if you do that whole deck,
I think that Lore Aragorn is actually number 1 by a long shot. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
I feel
and
like
then
you go right there, yeah.
Right behind him is probably Spirit Glorfindel, just because of your low starting threat.
Mm-hmm.
A 5, and then you can just that's what I did. I've had a solo deck with those 3. He some other cards he pairs with too that's in Sphere is a very recent one that came out is Woodman's Clearing. I was really excited to see when Woodman's Clearing came out.
Right, because there's not a lot of lore threat reduction, right? And so this is a
Yeah.
way to reduce your threat without, burning Loragorn right off the bat.
Yeah. Grima can also be paired well with Spirit Theoden also, because Spirit Theoden will reduce the cost of your Rohan allies by 1. And with Grima, you could potentially reduce a Rohan cost ally by 2. So a 3-cost Rohan ally cost you 1 resource.
And 3 Rohan, a 3-cost Rohan ally is actually probably pretty good.
Oh yeah, there's a whole long list of them.
Yeah, that just go on and on and on and on.
And then if you're playing Spirit Theoden, you get access to Spirit, which has a whole bunch of threat reduction.
Right, and then so I guess that's true then for any of the guys who reduce, as my voice cracks and I finally hit puberty, as any of those guys who reduce the cost to play. So I'm thinking of Radagast, who, right? He doesn't. What does his staff reduces the cost to play creatures by 2, right?
Yeah, so you could potentially reduce the creature cost by 3 even further.
Right, which is like when those eagles come flying in. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
All of a sudden we're talking about cheap eagles. What?
Yeah.
Cheap eagles?
Yeah.
Yep.
Some of those 4-cost, 5-cost ones, you get down to very, very expensive rates.
Right. I actually pair Grima with Lord Denethor. Sorry, not Lord Denethor. With Leadership Denethor. Because my thought was, and this is the deck that I put together and I played just to kind of make sure that I was okay for this show. It's like just super aggro play, get out all the people you can in the first 2 turns, regardless of threat raises and things like that. Like, you play like Legacy of Numenor, and you play all these cards that give you all these things, and you play Sneak Attack, and you can do all these things, and then you have a board state that's crazy, and then you can use Loragorn to reduce your threat back down to starting, and then it just brings you right back down to nothing, and then you're ready to go, just trample over everything.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of his ability has a lot of innate power to it because it's an action to do it.
Right.
So you can produce another card inside of different action windows. A couple cards from the core set that come to mind are like Secret Paths and Radagast's Cunning. The action where you will target a location or enemy in the staging area and reduce its threat by, I think it's just down to 0, where you don't count its threat. You can have no resources, and if you need to play that card, you can then just reduce its cost to 0, because his ability doesn't say minimum cost of 1. It's
right.
You can reduce the card down to 0.
You got to start it on this Loragorn thing, Grant. What else do you have that works with this guy?
Anything that really reduces your threat. So, as you've said, you've got Spirit Glorfindel, who is starts off with 5 threat. So you start off really low, but also Galadriel. Because obviously you can use her ability to draw a card and reduce your threat by 1, which cancels out the doomed one from Grima.
Right.
I've got to admit, when Grima first came out, I was not a fan. I thought, why on earth do you want to raise your threat for that 1 point of dropping? But since I've started getting better with me deck building and what have you, I've started looking more at how the cards work together, and I actually like him now. He doesn't make it into an awful lot of me decks, but he's seen a little bit of play in a few of the decks I've been trying out lately.
Yeah, I think that Grima's ability on the surface doesn't look like horribly splashy, but the thing is that if you can consistently get that one bonus every round, like, I think that I'm not going to say that, stop the presses, this card is amazing, but what I'm going to say is that I think it's better than you initially think when you're trying to play a deck for whatever reason. And the other thing about his ability is like you can use it, you can trigger it, and then wait until halfway through the turn, the round, and then trigger it on the next, because it's the next card you play. So if you have a Test of Will in hand and a Spirit Hero, you can trigger his action at the end of the staging step at the end of the refresh, not the planning phase, and then for whatever reason, use it then for what just to do that. It's not the next card that you play during that phase. It's just the next card that you play.
Yeah, that's a good point, David. Yeah, it's a very powerful hidden effect. It also protects you from, there's the only real quest that comes to mind. Certain quests will force your heroes to lose resources, right? There are treachery cards in certain scenarios. The Drudane Forest.
I was just about to say the Drudane Forest, where he's, you're just stuck the whole time.
So what's nice is that you don't actually his resources it's almost hidden. It's hidden away till you trigger it, so you can save that resource right exactly like when you need it. Right. If you happen to have no resources, you all of a sudden have one.
Right. It's like pseudo resource generation. Like if you're running Grima, you probably don't have to run Steward of Gondor, for example.
But you could if you really wanted.
Right, if you wanted to get super aggro on it, I guess you could. Right, super aggressive.
But but you're right. It's a great way to get resources. If you are playing a multiplayer game and that Steward of Gondor is spoken for, because it's a unique card, someone else is playing it, it's a great way to get extra resources.
But are you really playing Grima multiplayer, Ted?
Yeah, it's usually not.
Right.
Usually not. I'll be Gandalf guy, but I don't really like to be Grima guy.
Right. Yeah. One of the things that I found just recently in the latest AP, the Fate of the Wilderlands. I just got my copy. And Ted, do you have Fate of the Wilderlands?
I don't own it, but I got a chance to play through the scenario recently.
That's cool. But one of the cards is called the Great Hunt, and so for 3 lore resources, you get to remove or you get to discard an enemy from the stage.
A non-unique enemy.
Right. And so here I am, and I'm playing Grima with this, real aggressive, like get people out, get all the. And so I was playing Legacy of Numenor, so I had and Leadership Denethor, so I had 8 resources, and I'm pulling out all these things. And then I think I drew into like Heed the Dream, so I could draw whatever I wanted to get out and to play. But I was playing Journey Along the Anduin, and like the Hill Troll was going to come and hit me, like. So to play cards that also help mitigate the enemies from coming down sort of help as well. So I was able to take the Great Hunt and play that in the first turn to get rid of the Hill Troll. That way I wouldn't have to worry about engaging something, because my threat kept going up and up and up, because I didn't want to reset my threat the first round after I played 2 Legacies of Numenor. I had a threat of 37, 38, whatever it was. So, I think that cards like that help mitigate the staging area from coming down to you when you're raising your threat also work well with Grima.
Lor's got a lot of tricks like that, and Grima gives you access to those tricks. And then if you touch a little bit on his stat line, he's got 2 willpower too, and that's usually what I use him for. Is he then he his ability when you need it, and then he's usually questing each round for 2, which is decent.
Yeah, which is decent. I put a Celebrian Stone on him. He wasn't going to defend for me because I had Denethor, so why not? Right?
Yeah, but he could be a decent defender too, because again, being in lore, he could wield Burning Brands and Protector Florian too.
Right. Well, the only thing else that I was going to say about, I think we hit on a lot of the key points, is that but I think that I'm conflicted about his card art. It's the strangest, weirdest card art, I think, in the game.
Yeah,
but it's also Grima. So I'm like, okay, well,
Yeah, I think Grant, I think you hit on it just right. Where his ability is incredibly thematic, right? Like I consider
Yeah.
his ability like he's giving you advice. He is giving you a resource, but that resource, his advice is tainted in some way. Where it's working against you, and his art kind of matches that. It's got a strange, I don't know, like overtone to it, where you look at it and you're like, something's a little off about this guy, the way he's pictured, and that's kind of how the character is. So
yeah,
I think it matches pretty well.
super weird, but I'm okay with it
But
because Grima's. If this was the way that like Aragorn's card art was, I'd be a lot weird. I'd be a little more, I don't know. It just feels icky. The card does. So, well, if there's nothing more to say, should we move on to ringing this, guys?
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered all bases. Just look for anything that keeps your threat low and low threat heroes. Merland also popped into my head too.
Yeah, I was going to say
you mentioned Mono Lore, David, and she's great to pair because she just you can get her threat down.
Yeah.
But
Merland, who reduces everybody's threat by every lore character by 1, right?
Yeah.
So
yep.
So that's good.
But it's a lot of great pairings. Let's ring this doohickey, this doojabber.
Grant, you want to ring it?
Yeah, just give us a sec.
Okay, so
he's got to put it into the card talk.
Oh yeah, the database
algorithm.
Yeah, right. So while Grant is opening up the database, for anybody who doesn't know, Card Talk has a highly scientific yet arbitrary system where we rank the cards on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is the one card to rule them all, and 10 is the worst card in the card pool, bike spokes or coaster fodder, I don't know, whatever, binder trash, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
so
binder trash.
Yeah. So Ted, since you're the new guy, you can go first. And then we'll
thank
go
you
from there. Yeah.
so much for the honors. I would rate Grima at. His ability can be quite powerful. A way to gain resource, especially in lore, or being able to really, you can get a resource, reduce the cost of any sphere or card, a tactics card, leadership, neutral. It's not limited, and the fact that you can. You don't have to trigger it. It's there for when you need it. I'd give him a 5. I'd say he's definitely has strong playability, but he certainly has a cost.
Right. Okay, Grant, how do you feel about Grima Wormtongue?
I'm going to rate him a 4 because his ability is unique and it is very versatile. He's got a low threat count to begin with, so you're not actually paying for his ability multiple times. Like, he doesn't start off with a high threat cost, so you don't have to worry about using his ability straight away for engaging like high cost enemies if you set up your deck well. I like the fact that you can drop a card in, like a 2-cost or 3-cost card, straight away without having to worry about having all the resources there. So I'm rating him a 4. How about yourself, David?
Here's the thing. I played him. I've been playing him a bunch this past week in a bunch of different scenarios, and I think it's funny because he gets you over that doom fear. That fear that you're gonna doom yourself out of existence. But that said, I think he still only fits into a couple of different deck archetypes if you're going to take full advantage of him. I think that he, like we said earlier in the show, I think he works way better solo than he does in multiplayer. So I think he's restricted that way. I also think that, but he does open up parts of the card pool that you would otherwise not necessarily want to play, not because of his lowering the cost, but because since you're giving other cards doomed 1, you might as well put other doomed cards into your deck. So,
well,
Ted.
You know what? I think that's what I like to call the Grima trap. Another. How do we miss? I think we missed Keys of Orthanc too.
Yeah, I know.
His
I
number
just
one
thought
pairing
about that. Right.
card.
We interrupt this ring rating to go back to
yeah.
talking about the cards. No, let's go. Let's do this.
Yeah. Keys of Orthanc, of course, the one neutral cost attachment where anytime you encounter a doomed keyword, you can exhaust the keys to gain a resource.
Right, and that does work with Grima. So just because it does give the card doomed 1. So that rules clarification, so everybody knows.
Yeah. So Keys of Orthanc effectively doubles the amount of resources that he gives, for only a 1 cost attachment. Right. But I think the Grima trap is where you put too many doomed cards into your deck.
Well, I think that's the general deck building trap, though. Is like, like you say, I'm going to build an Ent deck. Ent's maybe not the best example, but I'm going to build a Sylvan deck. I'm going to take every Sylvan thing and I'm going to put them in a deck, and I'm going to then throw it out there. You lose consistency, and you lose the things that you wanted your deck to do to begin with. So I think that by opening up the Doom door, though, I think that you start using cards that you wouldn't necessarily use, and then
I see what you're saying.
Deck builders that are better than me, that they'll say, you can throw in, a couple copies of Legacy of Numenor, and that's enough, or a couple copies of Dark Knowledge, Deep Knowledge. Which one is the yeah, but you don't have to put 50 Doom cards in your deck, because that just is not. It opens the door into that. Is I guess where I was going.
That's a good point. So maybe if you don't usually play Deep Knowledge, next time you make a lore deck that doesn't have Grima, try playing Deep Knowledge. Is
right.
What you're saying.
And it's not because Deep Knowledge isn't a good card standalone, but there's just a lot of players out there that see Doomed and they're like, I'm not touching Doomed.
Right.
And so, but then if you're going to play Grima, well, let me try this whole thing.
Yeah.
So,
don't doom the doom.
Don't
just condemn it.
So
don't be doomed of it. Be afraid.
So back to the ring rating. I think
to the ring rating.
Yeah,
David.
Right. I think that he opens up that door for deck builders to get into a little bit more exciting space that they may have not wanted to travel in before. That said, though, I still think that I don't think if somebody's going to splash lore, which may be even the best thing that he can do, because you can splash lore with Grima and reduce the amount of lore resources you need to pay and still do your other thing. I still don't think that's his role for whatever reason. So I think he's really he doesn't see as much play as he should, but I'm also, I don't know. I think that he's not, how do I want to say it? I just don't think he's not the hero that people turn to, especially me, to turn to when we're splashing lore. He can splash other heroes like Merland or Pippin or the other lore heroes. The new Golem new Smeagol heroes coming out maybe as a splash lore hero. So I think that I have to go with a 7 on this guy. Like he's good, but I think he loses something in the multiplayer and the other stuff that he does.
Understandable.
So there we have it. That is our first episode in the can with our new host, Ted Bannock. So Grant, Ted, we'll come back again and we'll do this another time next week and we'll talk about more cards. Have a great day, everybody. And if you're interested in finding this or any of our back episodes of Card Talk, Feel free to search YouTube where you can find our flagship video episodes with the username CardTalk2018. Or you can search the RSS feed, cardtalk2018.libsyn.org, for our extended audio versions of our podcast. Or you can find us on Facebook at CardTalk2018. And if you have any questions for Grant or myself, or for both of us, feel free to email us at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.